beautiful Frontal. I'm Samantha B. It's our 200th episode. Oh my God, I cannot believe we made it. And I also can't believe we're still talking about basically the same things we were talking about back then.
On Wednesday, the justices heard oral arguments on a Mississippi law that would bar almost all abortions after 15 weeks. Now, that law directly contradicts the 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling, which guaranteed that right prior to the viability of the fetus, generally considered about 24 weeks into a pregnancy.
It's pretty clear the Mississippi law is going to survive. In about half the country, abortion would be illegal.
With all due respect to the Supreme Court, this so hard. This ruling could effectively overturn Roe v. Wade and revoke a right that has been fundamental and established for women in this country for decades. And what makes this even worse is that if Justice Amy Coney Barrett had her way, women would essentially become human incubators.
Both Roe and Casey emphasized the burdens of parenting, and insofar as you and many of your amici focus on the ways in which the forced parenting, forced motherhood would hinder women's access to the workplace and to equal opportunities, it's also focused on the consequences of parenting and the obligations of motherhood that flow from pregnancy. Why don't the safe haven laws take care of that problem? It doesn't seem to me to follow that pregnancy and then parenthood are all part of the same burden.
So by that logic, if you die of complications from an unwanted pregnancy, it's just because you were too lazy to live. With a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court, the potential hollowing out of reproductive rights isn't a shocking outcome, but it does call attention to recent questions about the court's legitimacy, a concern that was voiced by Justice Sotomayor.
The sponsors of this bill, the House bill in Mississippi, said we're doing it because we have new justices. The newest ban that Mississippi has put in place, the 6-week ban, the Senate sponsor said we're doing it because we have new justices on the Supreme Court. Will this institution survive the stench that this creates in the public perception that the Constitution and its reading are just political acts? I don't see how it is possible.
Good thing the court only allows audio because you know Sotomayor was flipping her colleagues off. But she's right. The Supreme Court is undergoing a legitimacy crisis and public approval is at an all-time low.
In just 2 months, the Supreme Court's approval rating dropped 9 points. It now sits at 40%, the lowest since Gallup began tracking it in 2000. The poll found 3 major unpopular decisions driving that drop: declining to block Texas's 6-week abortion restrictions, striking down the CDC's eviction freeze, and allowing colleges to mandate COVID vaccines.
This is terrible news for everyone except Brett Kavanaugh, who's never had 40% of people like him in his life. A majority of Americans believe the court's decisions are based more on the justices' political leanings than the Constitution and law. Probably because the justice's blind statue outside the court now reads, "She's blind because she masturbated too much and made God angry." And although the court's recent track record speaks for itself, conservative justices have been quick to clutch their pearls against criticism.
Justice Samuel Alito blasting the media for portraying the now conservative-leaning court as a dangerous cabal, deciding important issues in a novel, secretive, improper way in the middle of the night.
Barrett said she wants to convince people that the Supreme Court is not comprised by, quote, a bunch of partisan hacks. Barrett added she's no more important than anyone else in the grocery store checkout lines.
Oh, that is the biggest load of bullshit. Of course she thinks she's more important. Even I demand VIP treatment when I go shopping, and people give it to me because they think I'm busted Gwyneth Paltrow. Despite what these legally blands want us to believe, this is the most conservative court we've seen since the 1930s. And Republicans, led by the only pimple Dr. Pimple Popper couldn't pop, have been gaming the system for years in order to stack the court in their favor.
There would be no hearings, no votes, no consideration of Judge Garland.
This current court is the product of the unprecedented total obstruction of President Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland, and then the rushing through of Amy Coney Barrett to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Unfortunately, just like the trauma from walking in on your grandparents having sex, SCOTUS appointments are for life. We could be dealing with the consequences of their decisions for decades, especially when it comes to reproductive rights. For some people, it'll be easier to find a Blockbuster than it will be to find a clinic. While wealthy women will continue to be able to travel for abortions, the Supreme Court's decisions would especially hurt poor women and women of color. When the Supreme Court's decision on Mississippi's abortion law comes in the summer, we know there is a strong chance Roe v. Wade will be overturned. We have to prepare as best we can by helping support people who need to travel out of state for safe abortion access and by sharing information about abortion pills. Because no matter what the court eventually says, abortion is a right. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to hear more from Full Frontal, like and subscribe. If you'd like to hear some opinions from a man in a lifted truck, leave YouTube on autoplay.